Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Being able to be aware of people's nonverbal makes you a extremely talented listener. When you listen to someone, you have to be able to read people's nonverbal, be aware of people's nonverbal. Now, learning nonverbals is a sign. There are nonverbals of how people put their feet, how they sit, nonverbals of the hand, nonverbal of how people's face is. Most of the time when we think of nonverbal, you're mostly thinking about how to read someone's face. But face is actually the least important when it comes to reading nonverbals. Your feet is actually more important. But I'll tell you about that in a second. Before we even get to nonverbal, it's important that we know some principles. Here are a few things that you have to begin to implement in your life to be someone who is very good in reading people's nonverbal, being aware of people's nonverbal. Prophet Muhammad one time, he was there and a companion, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, came to him and said salam to the Prophet. And so Prophet as soon as he saw him, he said, did you get married? And he said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. How did you know? And Prophet by just observing Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he knew that he probably got married. Because one, he smelled like a perfume that was usually worn by the woman of Medina. And so obviously, why does he smell like a perfume of a woman in Medina? If he wasn't with a woman, obviously he's a Muslim, and so he was not with a woman unless he was married. And so put all that together, and he's new to Medina. It's not like his family's here. So put all that together, he probably got married. And so Prophet, and of course looking at his face, looking at his behavior, if Prophet deduced, okay, did you get married? And he was able to know that. And so being aware of people's nonverbal. So here's a few things. Number one, you have to be able to be someone who's observant. Just being observant. Muslims are supposed to be so much observant, so much so that Prophet said, when you drink water in a cup, look inside. See if there's any bug, if there's any dirt. You're supposed to look, observe. Just by observing people, you can know so much. There's a famous, he's an ex-FBI, a very expert in the field of nonverbals, and he talks about, one time he was investigating this murder that happened in in Arizona reservation, and he was interviewing the suspect and him and his colleagues. And so suspect, he was talking about, I was in the field and I was walking and I took a left, I went home. I never saw the body. And everyone was listening to him. His story seemed plausible. He had a pretty good alibi. But this ex-FBI, as you listen to the suspect, he noticed that when the person said, I went left and I went home. I went left and I went home. Yet his hand was pointing towards the right. And so he knew something was off. Because even if by words he's lying, your body sometimes are not able to lie. Your body tells the truth. And so just from deducing that, he was able to further interrogate the suspect, and he finally agreed, and he finally gave in and said gave in to the murder. And so being able to be very observant, as Sherlock Holmes says, you see but you don't observe. So we see things around us, but we don't observe. Oftentimes people come in, I had no idea, that my son was doing drugs. I had no idea. I had no idea this person was going to come in and punch me in the face. I had no idea. I had no idea that I was going to get a letter and I was going to get fired. I was having a good conversation with my boss yesterday. But when you're having that conversation with your boss, you didn't observe his body language. Even though he was smiling or she was smiling with you and having decent talk, but if you read the body language correctly, you would have probably told there was something brewing, something was going on in the HR. And you didn't know because you're not observant. And so number one is just being very observant. Number two, it's about knowing people's normal behavior. So you have to observe people normally how they are, how they behave, how they do things. So you see a brother in them and say, and oftentimes, he's walking like this, or he's talking like this, or he moves his hand like this when he speaks. But today he's not moving his hand like that. Why? That's the first trigger that should come in your mind, because you're observant. Not that you're trying to judge him, not that you're trying to be detective, 24/7 in your life. You shouldn't be detective 24/7 in your life. Live life. But if you are someone who's observant, you notice, okay, this person usually sits here when he comes to my house. Today he's sitting in that chair. Why? Right? He usually calls me around this time. Why did he call me this time? Why? And this why question, not so that you can be judgmental, but it's because you're trying to understand. Because you want to be someone who wants to expand and build your relationship, have a great relationship in your professional life and your personal life. So you want to be someone who's a good listener. And because you want to be someone who's a good listener, you want to be someone who is good at being able to learn people's nonverbal, observe people nonverbal. And so learn people's baseline. That's why when the police or the FBI, when they interview people, sometimes they start off with very basic things. They will start off with tell me about yourself. Nothing about the crime. Nothing about what they're accusing the person of, because they want to see the baseline, how the person reacts, how is the person when it comes to when they are intense, how they are normally in their facial structure, because they can now compare that to now when they're asking about they bring the evidence. This is the gun that was used. Have you seen this gun before? No, I haven't. Have you ever touched this gun before? So they can sort of and see how the body reaction is different. Right? So number 2 is being able to be observant of people's normal baseline. Just know people when they are normally, and if they're off from your normal baseline, when you walk in the house and see your wife or your mom or your brother or your husband, you see them in a different little state. That should make you curious in a loving, caring way, in a non-judgmental, loving, caring way. Well, why are they walking like that today? And ask and inquire. Right, so get to know people's baseline. Number 3, learn universals. So there are some universals across the world. Certain things that are very universal. The way people get mad is universal. When people are feeling dejected, they turn their face a certain way. When they're happy, they're elated. So those basic nonverbals that we all sort of do across the board, learn those. There are books, there are videos, I hopefully, inshallah, in the upcoming months or so, I'll probably do a whole video talking about different parts of the body, because this is hours worth of content, just talking about different things that your feet does, right? Your feet is probably one of the most best when it comes to nonverbal. You know why? Because before you even reacted to anything else, your hand, your face, your feet was the first to move. Your feet were the first to react to a quicksand, to a snake, to a scorpion. Your feet reacted right away to save you, to make you run, to make you hide. So your feet reacts even before you think. It's almost programmed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala programmed your feet to react, react to threats, react to anger, react to happiness. You see a kid who's very happy, their feet is dangling, right? Or someone who all of a sudden hearing something that's not good, their feet freezes, right? There's so many, nonverbals of the feet, and perhaps we could do a whole video on different, parts of the feet. But observing the feet is very important, because face is something that people can manipulate. Because from a young age you learn, don't make that face. Fix your face. Maybe your mom told you when you're young, And so you learn to fake your face. And so face is the worst place. People always look up online and in dating sites and how to read people's, their facials and so forth. That's actually the worst thing you could do. It's actually not useful at all. Face is not that useful. Your feet is actually way more useful. But anyways, that's for a separate day, separate topic. But here what I want to tell you is to learn people's universals. Universally what people do when it comes to nonverbal. And number 4, learn the unique nonverbal. So every single human being that you interact with, they do something unique when they are upset, when they're hurt, when they're angry, when they're happy. People react a little differently. When they hear something that they don't want to hear, they react a little differently. When they are encouraged, they hear something differently. These make a difference. There are universals and they are very specific. It's specific to the culture. For example, you might think that someone is not looking at you directly in the eyes. You might think, they must be lying, or they don't want to hear what I'm saying. But it depends on the culture. Because some culture, looking straight in the eyes is considered disrespectful. And in some culture, if you don't look in the eyes and you're looking somewhere else, it's considered disrespectful. So it really depends on the culture. And so learn the cultural differences, and also the individual person that you're dealing with, and you observe them, how they sit, how they walk, how they talk. Just be people who are observant.